From the pages of prophecy to the headlines of today, the signs are unfolding around us. Welcome to Editor's Desk, the show that dives deep into Michael Vilardi's groundbreaking work on the end of times. Each episode, we examine the clues, the patterns, and the truth behind what may lie ahead. If you felt the world shifting, you're not alone. Join us as we piece together the story that was written long before our time. This is Editor's Desk, where understanding begins.
Hey, welcome to the Editor's Desk. I'm your host, Mike Vilardi, and we're here to talk about my book, Unexpected Assignment Guarding the Antichrist, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and soon Walmart. This book has gotten 5-star reviews, and it's on Bible prophecy. And today, I'm in studio with Freddy, my TV producer. Freddy, great to have you on the show.
Great to see you again, Mike.
And Freddy and I are going to talk about politics and how it dives into Bible prophecy. So in this book, when you get in and you read it, you'll see that I predicted for 2028 that the Democrats are going to win not only the presidency, but everything else. And there's a reason for that. And we're going to talk about that reason later on. But let's talk about what's happening right now, right before the 2026 midterm elections. Freddie, what do you got to say about what's happening with these Democratic socialists winning in large numbers, like never before?
And not only winning, but they're winning in states that make a difference. You talk about New York, you talk about Minnesota, and they're winning. In my explanation to this thing, they're winning, one, because the Democratic Party has allowed this to happen, because the Democratic Party doesn't have a clue as to what to do to rebound of losing the presidency. They lost it, and they don't know what to do with themselves, so they're jumping on a socialist platform. And some people say socialist platform was not good, not bad, I don't know. But you're going to explain to us how, you let me read your book, right. Some of the things that are in there. That's when did you write this book?
I wrote this book over a year ago.
And you're talking about 2028 and the things that are happening today, like you knew.
Like I knew, that's right, because the Bible tells us.
And tell me why.
Okay, so let me tell you why. The Bible talks about a period of time when Christ is going to come back to earth. And before that happens, there's a 7-year period of time known as Daniel's 70th week. That's the last 7 years before his return, when his mercy goes back to the Jews and the Jews alone. Before that period of time, there's another 1,260-day period of time known as the tribulation for the saints. Okay? The tribulation for the saints begins with an event called the catching up of the church, or the rapture. Paul the Apostle wrote about it. He says, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, you'll be transformed, and you'll be caught up to be with the Lord, and you'll be forever with the Lord. When Jesus spoke about that event, he said this: 2 will be in the bed, 1 will be taken, 1 will be left. 2 people will be in the field, 1 will be taken, 1 will be left. In Matthew 25, he gives the scenario of the 10 bridesmaids that are about to be married, but only 5 had oil in their lamp when they were ready, and 5 weren't. And the 5 that had the oil in their lamp, they went in to be with the bride, the bridesmaids, the husband. And the other 5 were left out. The door was locked. They were locked out. Jesus said this about this particular event. He says, watch and pray, you're accounted worthy, right? He says, if you're a steward of a farm, right, and the owner puts you in charge, and he comes back, and if he finds you drinking and fornicating and not doing what you're supposed to do, he's going to throw you out. So Jesus says, be ready, because you don't know the day or the hour when this event's going to come, right? So we don't know the day or the hour. But what the Bible is clear about is this: we know the time frame. Paul the Apostle wrote in Thessalonians, he said, but brethren, this day will not take you unaware. You're going to know when it's going to happen, because you're children of light. You're not of the darkness. So you're going to know what to look for, okay? All right, so what clues did Jesus give us that now is the time? Well, he gave us 3. The first clue was when he said that Israel would come together as a nation before the second coming of Christ. Well, when did that happen? That happened on May 14th, 1948, okay? And in Psalm 90, verse 10, it tells us that a man's years, or 70, which is 70, less by reason of strength, 80. In other words, you could expect to live between 70 and 80 years, right? This is going back to David, which was 1,000 years before Christ. And not much has changed. That's about right. If we were to say, how long does the American male live? It comes in like at 77 years old, right? So 70 to 80 years is right. We passed the 70-year mark back in 2018. We're approaching the 80-year mark. Now, before we could get to that mark, before it's fulfilled, Jesus said he's coming back. He's going to return. Well, how's he going to return? First, for the catching up of the saints. In Revelation 3:10, the Bible says this. It says, because you've been faithful to do my will, to have faith and to live right, I will keep you from this hour of great tribulation, which is going to come upon the whole world. Okay? Now, that means within the next few years, this event must happen. Not should, absolutely has to happen. The second thing he says is that society would be like in the days of Noah. Well, what do we know about the days of Noah? Well, there was extreme violence, right? Now we have like cage fighting, UFC, right? You've seen what happened when Biden let in all those immigrants. How many women were raped and killed? We brought in all these evil people. Remember when they took over that apartment complex in Colorado? Mm-hmm. Knocking on door with guns, shooting people, killing people out of nowhere. And he said, it'll be like Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, days of Noah, Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, what was Sodom and Gomorrah known for?
Sex and violence?
It was known for, right, homosexuality,
yeah.
Right? When the two angels came to visit Lot, right, God said, and this is what people need to know about God, which I think they don't, is his character. God has a character. And his character is this. His mercy will always come before his judgment. How do we know this? Well, the biggest story in the Bible is the one of Jonah, who didn't want to go to Nineveh and tell Nineveh, listen, God's upset, he's going to destroy your city. And he tried to escape. He got on the ship, and then, of course, he spent 3 days in the belly of the fish, and then he got spit up, and he went to the king. And what did the king do? The king said, you know what? Let's pray. Maybe God will forgive us. And God relented. He forgave them. He did not destroy the city, right? We see that with the woman who was caught in adultery, right? They set her up because the Bible tells us that the men that brought her to Jesus said that she was caught in the very act. How do you catch somebody in the very act of committing it, unless there's a sign, right? Like he's going to the window, go when I wave, go ahead, come in. How do you do that? So she was caught in the very act. And they said to him, the law says that she should be stoned. What do you say? And he was writing on the ground, and he was probably writing out all their sins. And he says, ye among you without sin, cast the first stone. Mm-hmm. And they all felt guilty. They know what they have done, and they walked out. And he says to the woman, where are thy accusers? And she says, there are none, Lord, but you. And he said, go and sin no more. Okay? So we see this principle in the Bible where God is forgiving. Okay? The thief on the cross, perfect example. Now, there's 4 different accounts of the thief on the cross. In those 4 accounts, some of them talk about that thief making fun of Jesus. So he made fun of Jesus before Jesus said these words, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Right? So when he heard that, he said to Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. His heart changed. Right there on the cross, he went from mocking him to believing him. Mm-hmm. And what did Jesus say? Today you'll be with me in paradise. Mm-hmm. Right? So this is the trademark of God is he's merciful before he judges. Mercy before judgment. Right? So now when we talk about when he said it'll be like Sodom and Gomorrah, well, what do we do here in America? We celebrate Gay Pride Month for a month. Now we have the 4th of July Day, we have Memorial Day, we have Veterans Day, we have President's Day, but we have an entire month for celebrating being gay. We throughout society, no other society has ever sanctified gay marriage except for here in America. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's happened anywhere else.
Well, unless you look back towards the Greek culture, no, the Greek Empire.
And even though it might have been prevalent, but I don't recall in history where they actually sanctified a marriage. But so my point is, we live in those times. That's the point. We are there. Okay. Now, many years ago, I interviewed on TV a man named Kamal Salim. You might have heard of him. He wrote the book, The Blood of Lambs. Kamal became a friend of mine. We did 8 television shows. Kamal came to set up the Islamic takeover of America. Set it up in 1985 with Saudi money. And we're now seeing the result of that. We now have a Muslim mayor in New York City. We have Muslims in Minnesota, right? Where they've taken over the AG's position. We have a large amount of Muslims running throughout the country. And we have democratic socialists who want to bring communism to the United States of America, which will be America's downfall, of course. Communism has never worked any place, ever. Not one time. It didn't work in China, didn't work in Russia. It's never, ever worked. It's a failed philosophy. And the reason it's a failed philosophy is simple. They encourage you not to be productive.
Okay.
In other words, if you want to get the benefits, you got to be below a certain income level. You can't make above a certain amount. We only give it to people who stay below an economic this level. So what happens when it went to Cuba? The Cubans who had a thriving economy, remember the mob, if you watch the movie The Godfather, right? The mob was all set up in the casinos and everything, and Cuba was great until Castro took over. And then everybody becomes poor. Because communism is about the government controlling all the money and your wealth, and they keep the people poor. And if people are poor, they can't fight back. It's very hard when you can't feed yourself to have a revolution. Venezuela went from being the wealthiest country in South America to the poorest because a communist took over.
Okay.
Okay? And I think this is one of the reasons why Donald Trump wants to pay the Save America Act, where you have to have citizenship to vote. Because we're finding out in New Jersey, as an example, that non-citizens are voting in our elections. And how do they vote? Mostly Democrat. Why? Because the Democrats are the ones that are going to give you the handouts. That's what they're the ones running on, right? Mandami, what did he run on? Free buses, rent control, tax the rich. And what's happening in New York City?
Well, hold on. I got a question.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the past number of years, maybe from Nixon forward, it's been Republican and Democrat that have been president.
Yes, 50-50 split.
50-50 split.
That's correct.
And what happens is that the people that are voting in this country, if they come out Democrat, you're going to win. If they come out Republican, you're going to win. So there's a lot of washing of sin. They each give up their vote in whatever they think is the best interest of what they're hearing. So my question here is, if you have socialist candidates winning, then obviously it's because people are voting them in. And obviously it's because neither party is saying what the people, the public, the same people that brought in Democrats and Republicans are not saying what they want to hear. So they're going to an alternative, not even independent anymore, because they're really lost in the woods.
But let me say this, and here's, I think, one of the biggest issues. Have you followed the mayor's race in Los Angeles?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay. That was a race where the Republican on election night won. The other Democratic candidate conceded.
Yes.
And then, out of nowhere, all the mail-in ballots came in for that other Democratic candidate, who happens to be a Democratic socialist. I think there's a fraud element. Somebody, a reporter, an independent reporter, went around, and they were interviewing the homeless there. And the homeless was being paid $2, sometimes more, to go vote for the Democratic Socialists. Now, that's a problem. Voter fraud is a problem.
If that's what happened, you're right. Voter fraud is a problem.
It's a problem.
The only thing is, if I go down L.A. and I register every homeless person, and they vote, then they have a right to vote.
But if they vote and they got paid to vote,
or they got a meal to vote. But hold on, wasn't it? Hold on, wasn't it Musk who offered $1 million for people to vote Republican?
I don't recall that.
You
But
remember that he was cutting with the saw, he was cutting everything in the federal government, and then he went to, I think it was Pennsylvania, and he offered people like a contest, and there was like $1 million on the table for you to vote. But he was able to do it because he was third person, and then the judicial system says you can't do that. It's illegal. You're buying votes.
Right, you can't buy votes.
But he was doing it out in the open.
You can't buy votes. Well, I all I could tell you is we should have voter ID.
100%, but it has to be legitimate.
Of course.
In other words, okay, and this is where you and I are going to disagree. If you're going to have voter ID and you're going to register people, you can't arrest people if they don't register. If I don't want to vote.
Oh, that's fine. That's not an issue.
But it is an issue. Didn't they have this problem in Florida?
Well, here's what happened in New York. This is a true story. In 2020, I had a friend who's a special agent. I was a federal agent in New York, and he was a junior. His father was a senior. He went to vote.
Okay.
He notices that, of course, his father is right above him on the voter rolls.
Okay.
So he noticed his father signed in. He said to the guy, the poll operator, that's not my father's signature. He says, well, your father was here, he voted. He goes, really? He goes, I just saw my father a couple hours ago at the cemetery because he's been dead for 5 years.
True.
And now he's a registered Democrat, but he died. He never came off the rolls. And miraculously, he voted.
Somehow he showed up at the polls.
Somehow he made it, right? I mean, just like all the Civil War veterans that mailed in their ballots for Joe Biden in 2020. It's amazing how they all have the same address, and they all fought in the war, but they were able to mail in ballots.
And I'll give you that argument because, but it happens on both sides.
I'm sure it does.
There's checks that went out that the Trump administration found out that 80% of these people were dead,
right?
Because they kept sending it out.
Right.
Nobody cared to look at the rolls and update it, and there was a lot of waste.
Right.
There was somebody in there that was 173 years old or something still getting.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Social Security checks. Yeah,
but at the same time,
right.
Just because that particular division of people were getting checks, it didn't make them Democrats.
No,
it made them people.
Right.
The system
that's true.
was busted.
Right.
So if you want to
right.
have a system to replace the busted system now, then we should have that.
We should have. I do think it's necessary. Look, you have to have an ID to go buy beer.
Yes.
You have to have an ID to get into a sporting event.
Yes.
You have to have an ID to do almost anything.
Even drive a car.
Even drive a car. So why shouldn't you have an ID to vote that says...
Because like every college kid in America is under the age of 18, has a fake ID, and then they're putting criminals to put... I mean, it's a system that is not going to be 100% safe. There's still going to be cheating. There's still going to be people that are going to try to take advantage
of course.
Of it.
But it makes it more honest, more difficult.
Yes.
Because if you had to, for instance, make a copy of your driver's license to mail it in with your mail-in ballot, there's a lot less chance of fraud.
Agreed. But does that mean that if I don't have a driver's license, I can't vote?
No, but you can get a state-issued ID. I mean, because let's say you go to college, right? When I went to college, you had to get an ID just before you could start classes. You needed a student ID.
Okay.
So you could get the colleges will issue a student ID. It'll have your picture on it. It'll have your name. It'll have your address. Have your date of birth.
Okay. I'll give you that. So let's say that people legitimately voted.
Yes.
And everybody's going to come out and vote for the midterm elections.
Yes.
And in the midterm elections, the people have spoken.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Right.
And they vote socialist.
Yes.
So, is that poor planning by the Republicans? Is it poor planning by the Democrats? Or is it just the people saying, you know what, we don't trust either one of them?
Well,
and we could talk about the reasons why.
Right. Well, here's what's interesting. When I wrote about it in the book, right? The Bible talks about the Antichrist, who's going to wax great. In other words, he's going to become the single most powerful person in the world.
Which is the president.
Which right now is the president. That's correct. How does the Antichrist, who's going to come from Syria, right? The Bible calls him the Assyrian, right? and his name was encoded in the first 5 books of Moses, and he was born on the same day as Jesus Christ, except 1967 years later. How is that going to happen unless America falls? And how is America going to fall? Well, it's really simple. When the catching up of the saints happens, half the Christians go.
Okay.
That changes the demographics. Most Christians will vote Republican, conservative. They're gone. That means the Democrats are going to win every election. They're going to win the presidency. They're going to win the Senate. They're going to win the Congress. Now, we're seeing such extreme Democrats get elected, like in Michigan, who just won the primary. Okay? He's very extreme to the left.
But he's a primary.
It's a primary, right?
Yeah.
But he'll be running in November.
Mm-hmm.
If the rapture happens between now and then, he'll win. Look at Mandomini in New York. Look at Minnesota. Look at California. Here's what's interesting about California. They had a recall election because the people of California were so upset with Gavin Newsom. During that recall election, people were showing up at the polls to vote, and they were told they already voted.
Okay, so he had to redo it.
Who was going to investigate voter fraud? Nobody.
Yeah, nobody.
So they all voted for him whether they wanted to and not whether they showed up or whether they didn't. They were told you could do a provisional ballot over there. I mean, the fraud is so... I mean, you take a guy like Newsom, who's not smart enough to have water in the fire hydrants knowing fires are coming.
Yes,
Okay?
that's true. That did happen.
Okay, it did happen. Done a terrible job, right? 2 refineries closed down in California due to regulation. Frito-Lay's had to close down their operations because they passed a law in the legislature saying that if a bag wasn't manufactured out of 80% recycled material, there was a $2,000 fine per bag.
Yeah,
They said
right.
we can't meet that.
Yeah, right.
So they went out of business. Now they go to a living wage, a $20 minimum wage, right? What happens? Pepsi and Coke said, we're going to redo our plants. We're not going to use people. We're going to use robots.
Amazon also.
Amazon too. So now what's happening is more people are out of work because of poor policies. If you look at San Francisco, I remember I went to San Francisco during the 80s. It was a beautiful city. Now, drug addicts, tents on the sidewalks, homeless all over the place. They've destroyed one of the most beautiful states in the country by poor policy. Poor
Oh my
planning.
God, you're saying the Democratic poor policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Look at their tax.
Hold on.
that-
Hold on. Look at the country,
Yes.
the president, the Congress,
Yes.
the Senate,
Yes.
all Republican.
Yes.
And the judicial was handpicked by the president because he's getting most of the stuff until recently approved. I think that you have a great argument if the Constitution of this country is, if you're able to manipulate it in its wording and the things that it says, soon they'll say you don't have to be born in this country to be president, which is in the Constitution.
Right.
That is the only way somebody
Well,
from Syria can be president.
And he's not going to be president. The Syrian's not going to be president here, but he's going to wax great because what's going to happen after the rapture is the Democrats. Let's say they win. Let's say they win in 26.
Okay.
What do you think they're going to do? They're going to impeach,
In
impeach,
28.
impeach. If they win the midterms in 26, they're going to
26.
impeach, right?
They're going to win
And-
most of it.
Right. And when they win in 28, they're going to go for Medicare for all. That's what they're all running on. All the energy is in the left-wing extreme socialist camp. Okay? Look at the ones that Chuck Schumer got behind, Hakeem Jeffries. They got their butts kicked
True.
by the people that Bernie Sanders and AOC got behind. And we're talking about a philosophy that's never won. But here's what's happened. Because of the war, we have $4 gas instead of $2 gas.
But again, that's Republican.
But that is, no, absolutely right. That was a decision to get into a war. We unless the information he had was 100% accurate, that they had a nuclear weapon they were going to use in the very near future, which I could understand. But even still, we have not navigated that well because we are stuck with inflation and high gas prices going into the midterm cycle. And that's a terrible place to be for the Republican Party.
Yes, it is. especially because it raises the price of everything else. So
That's
you're going to
exactly
see
what it
more
does, right.
homeless. You're going to see
Right.
food and everything else.
Right, exactly.
It's just bad policy.
It's right. It's
But
very
they don't do
problematic.
anything to fix it. He's backing out now, and he has no way of getting out of the war without saying, "Okay, keep the Strait of Hormuz." You know that's not even feasible because the gas will never come down. Then what happens?
It's very problematic.
Let me ask you another question. In this country, all the refineries
Yep.
are made to distill heavy crude. And we don't produce heavy crude. In this country, the leading country in the world of oil is us. And we do light crude. And we trade it because
Right.
we can't refine it.
No, and that's because of the problem with the refineries are very expensive. They're almost $1 billion to build.
Exactly.
And we saw 2 close in California due to legislation maneuvers, right? Because if you're, the green thinking is to get rid of fossil fuel.
I got you.
And so what oil companies want to invest $1 billion and then have a president come in and say, we're going to get rid of fossil fuel.
But
And that's a big
I
issue.
agree, but the issue here is that we can't even take care of ourselves in something where we mass produce. And the other thing is, in the Republican Party, don't we have fractions right now?
We
Don't
do,
we?
of course.
He can't get things done
get
either
things done.
within his own party.
That's very
So,
true.
Mike,
You're right.
again, unexpected assignment.
Assignment.
Yeah. Where does he lie? If I
Right,
look in
right.
the two parties, is all over the place.
Well, that's you're seeing a division in this country, and that division is what's going to destroy it from within. Just like the Roman Empire was corrupted from within, that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing nobody reaches across the aisle. There is more and more splintering and division than ever before, and now we're taking a hard left turn. And that hard left turn is going to destroy the country. And you can see it happening because what's going to happen is there's such a hatred for Donald Trump that when the Democrats take power, they're going to solely go after him. And that's going to destroy the country in its entirety.
But, Mike, it wasn't like that.
It was never like this.
His
no.
numbers
No,
were
no, no.
fantastic.
Right. It's
So,
because
so what the hell?
prophecy is about to be fulfilled, and that's why I wrote this book so people can understand it.
It's just a shame.
Because
I don't-
he's coming back, and so what happens is the Antichrist who when he comes to fruition, to power. And for people who don't know, here's what the Bible says is going to happen. The Bible says that he's going to get a deadly head wound, right? And he's going to start as nothing. It's called the little horn who waxes great, right? He gets that deadly head wound. He's going to be in a hospital for 3 days, brain dead. Okay. Remember, Christ was 3 days in the tomb before he came back to life and rose. Satan is a great imitator. He's going to imitate what Christ did. When he comes back, the false prophet, the person known as the false prophet, is going to look to unify all the religions, Catholicism, Islam, Hinduism, under one big umbrella, right? And he's going to say, look, this guy who is the mufti of Islam, they're awaiting the reason that the Muslims have gone into every country to take over is because they're waiting for the Antichrist to come back. And for people who don't know, in the Quran, it describes Allah as the greatest deceiver of all. The Quran says there's no greater deceiver than Allah. Well, who does that make him? Well, that makes him the devil. I mean, that's who the Bible calls. Jesus called Satan the father of all lies. There's no difference between the father of all lies and being the greatest deceiver of all. And that's when you're going to see everything radically change. Because in every country, he's going to be worshipped like a god. The Bible tells us the false prophet is going to have them build statues of the Antichrist and worship the statues. And the statue's going to come to life and people are going to worship it. Kind of like idol worship back in the day when they worship Baal and whatnot. So now we're getting to that point where everything's getting set up for the rapture. We have, like the days of Noah, like Sodom and Gomorrah. We have a move away from biblical Christianity towards Islam and other socialist type religions, or no religion where government is God, that type of thing. And we're seeing So we're seeing an uprising of the people that hate the Jews like never before. We see that at the universities. We see it throughout the country. And this is all a setup for this period of time known as the tribulation for the saints. It lasts 1,260 days. It's found in Revelation 12:6, Revelation 13:5, and Daniel 7:25.
All right, well, why don't we leave it there and we'll come back to part 2.
All right. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back for the Editor's Desk part 2 of this show. See you in 5 minutes. Thank you.
On Editor's Desk, we uncover the patterns that connect prophecy with the world we face today. Michael Vilardi's insights challenge us to look deeper, ask harder questions, and prepare for what may come. Thank you for joining us on this journey of understanding. Be sure to stay connected, share the message, and continue seeking truth. Until next time, remember, awareness is the first step toward readiness. This has been Editor's Desk.